All right, so we're going to go through the stages of cell division. So first thing you got to do is you got to start putting the memory, all the stages of the cell cycle, get them in your head, start where you could recognize the words. So the first one would be interphase, then we go prophase, then metaphase, then anaphase, then telophase, then cytokinesis. Now listen again. We start with interphase, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, and cytokinesis. Now, those could be divided up, and we're going to get into that later, but those, start getting those. We're going to start reciting those every day, and we could have a quiz here pretty soon. You never know. So here's how I start this. Cell division, cell growth. If you have more cells, if you're gaining more cells than you're losing cells, then you're growing. So right now, most of you guys sitting in the classroom, you're growing. Guys like me, I'm just maintaining my cells. The number of cells, I might even be losing some cells as we get older, we age, we probably tend to lose some cells. But there are 5 reasons that I want you to know why cells have to divide. Now, one is called DNA overload. Now, you get into when we get into genetics, you're going to discover that the DNA is what helps us make our proteins. And if a cell ends up getting too large, so we talked about this before, dinosaurs didn't have big cells, they had small cells. Cells aren't the size of basketballs because certain physical laws govern them. One is called DNA overload. The DNA, being responsible for making the protein, if the cell gets too big, there's too many functions for the DNA to help make protein for, and it kind of overloads the cell, and it would cease to function, it would die. So not enough DNA in the cell to meet the informational demands inside the cell. I like to think of it this way. Here's a picture. We all know that's Rensselaer Public Library, Jasper County Public Library, Rensselaer branch, and Rensselaer has a population roughly of about 6,000. And we may have mentioned this earlier in time, like maybe in September, maybe October, but I'm going to throw that out here again. What if the population of Rensselaer went from 6,000 to 100,000 overnight? And all of a sudden, would this library be big enough? It wouldn't have enough information to service a town of 100,000. So right now, 6,000, yeah, it can handle it. I've never gone into this library. I've never been able to really get any kind of a resource or information that I need. But if the town went up to 100,000, 200,000 overnight, a library that's built to maybe take care of 10,000 people or so, it's not going to be able to get the information. It's not going to be able to get enough of it. It's not going to have enough of the information to build all the proteins that a big cell would need. Now, another way to look at DNA overload, and with COVID going on and trying to keep track of all these things, think of having too many things to do during your day. That would be kind of analogous to DNA overload. So that would be one. So if the cell gets too big, before it gets too big, laws say that it has to divide. Okay, second, materials exchange. Well, a cell is a living thing, and it requires nutrients and water, and it has to get rid of waste and the material exchange aspect. But if the cell gets too large, it's not going to be able to get the things to the nucleus in time that it needs. If it can't get rid of the waste, it's going to get poisoned. Obviously, if it can't get the nourishment, it's going to starve to death. And we probably already have, when we were talking about cells, we performed a lab, maybe like this, where we have calculated the size of the small cell. You keep in mind that the volume of a cell, how much space it takes up, grows faster than the surface area of the cell. And the surface of the cell only has so many ways to get things in and out. But if the volume gets bigger, you wouldn't be able to get the things into the cell, the materials that it needs to survive. Okay. If the cell surface area gets too small, so if your volume gets too big, that means your surface area is becoming way too small. And remember, always, and I'm going to repeat it again, here's the rule. Cell volume will always increase faster than the surface area of a cell. We performed a lab in here probably no more than a month and a half ago, and we did the math, and you guys proved it to me. And so this should already be kind of fresh in your mind. So cell volume always increases faster than the surface area. Now, in the surface area, or the volume gets too large and the surface area gets too small, the cell is going to die. Now, here's another way that I like to think about this. Here's the city of Chicago. Most everybody, probably a lot of us have been here. This is the Dan Ryan Expressway that you can see going into town and coming out of town. Because this is kind of an older picture, but you got Trump Tower being built over here. Now, that is like a humongous expressway. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is 14 lanes. 14 lanes, 7 going in, 7 leaving Chicago. Now, Chicago in downtown, I guess about 2 million people. So there's probably 1.5 million people alone that live just in camera shot of this. This is that's a lot of people. And so those people need food, they need water, they need other things that help them survive, medical equipment, things of this nature. And so the Dan Ryan Expressway is just one of many, many, many expressways that go in and out of Chicago to help feed Chicago, to help take out the waste. We see the semis that drive by here all the time. They carry garbage from Chicago to one of the landfills that's pretty close. And so if that wasn't the case, then Chicago would get buried in garbage. So that's a kind of a necessary function. And so without these big roads going in and out of Chicago, those roughly 2 million people that live in this area, they couldn't survive. They would die. And so it's very analogous like a cell. If it can't get all the stuff in that it needs, then it's going to die. Now, think about this. If I take out all the big roads in Chicago, all the big roads, so all the expressways, all the major highways, and I replace them with just that road. So that's the only way in, and that's the only way out of Chicago. It wouldn't be within a few hours Chicago would be reeling, because this is not big enough. So think about, Chicago's volume, how big the city is, and this is the surface area, and it's just not enough to get stuff going in, okay, or take stuff out. So the city of Chicago would would quickly die of starvation. There would be probably riots and pandemonium there. It'd not be a good time to be in Chicago. Okay. The fourth reason for growth and repair. I mentioned it before. If you're growing, you're producing more cells than you're losing. People like me, I'm not growing anymore, so I'm not. If I cut myself, or you cut yourself, or you burn, there's mechanisms that switch on without us thinking about it that will help heal. Our hair is growing, our skin is constantly flaking off, and it needs replaced. So we have some maintenance where the cells have to divide for like skin cells, red blood cells, and mouth inside your epithelial cells inside your mouth, but also to repair. So if I bite the side of my cheek, that's got to be repaired. So then cells will turn on and turn off. And when the cell growth and this repair and the whole division thing gets out of whack, serious things can happen. Sometimes they could be fatal to us. And then the fifth reason is for sexual reproduction. We'll get into this more when we get into meiosis. That's kind of like the sister to mitosis. But those are the 5 reasons why cells must divide.